All of the work of James Dickey dwells on that meeting place between the wild and the civilized, between the human and animal. And you get a rather potent image of that in a short lyric of his, relatively short, called "The Sleep Child," which gets anthologized a lot. And the giveaway of the poem is really quite creepy and comes straight out of kind of a gothic novel, but it is afforded a kind of curious attention and consideration that takes it beyond the realm of simple schoolboy tittering. Farm boys wild to couple with anything, with soft wooded trees, with mounds of earth, mounds of pine straw, will keep themselves off animals by legends of their own. In the hay tunnel dark and dung of barns they will say, I have heard tell that in a museum in Atlanta, way back in a corner somewhere, there's this thing that's only half sheep, like a woolly baby pickled in alcohol, because those things can't live. His eyes are open, but you can't stand to look. I heard from somebody who. But this is now almost all gone. The boys have taken their own true wives in the city. The sheep are safe in the West Hill pasture. But we who were born there still are not sure. Are we, because we remembered in that terrible dust of museum? Merely with his eyes the sleep child may be saying, I am here in my Father's house, I who am half of your world, come deeply to my mother in the long grass of the west pasture, where she stood like moonlight listening for foxes. It was something like love from another world that seized her from behind, and she gave, not lifting her head out of dew, without ever looking, her best self to that great need. Turned loose, she dipped her face farther into the chill of the earth, and then a sound of sobbing, of something stumbling away, began, as she must do, to carry me. I woke, dying, in the summer sun of the hillside, with my eyes far more than human. I saw for a blazing moment the great grassy world from both sides, man and beast in the round of their need, and the hill wind stirred in my wool. My hoof and my hand clasped each other. I ate at my one meal of milk and died staring. From dark grass I came straight to my Father's house, whose dust whirls up in the halls for no reason when no one comes, piling deep in a hellish, mild corner. And through my immortal waters I meet the sun's grains eye to eye, and they fail at my closet of glass. Dead, I am most surely living in the minds of farm boys. I am he who drives them like wolves from the hound bitch and calf, and from the chaste ewe in the wind, and go into woods, into bean fields, they go deep into the known right hands, dreaming of me. They groan, they wail, they suffer themselves, they marry, they raise their kind. It's a story of bestiality, a story of sexual abuse of farm animals. It is a notorious legend among whispering preteen boys who are, as the poem says, wild to couple with anything, including soft wooded trees. The poem has some fun with that at the beginning, but then it zeroes in on what that could be. And it admits outright that it is all just fantasy. It is all just wild legends and tall tales, but it dwells on the possibility and it considers the issue. It considers what could come of that. This beast child, the offspring of a reportedly young boy's raping of a farm animal, and the generation that comes from that, and it's a somewhat horrifying perspective, because you go inside the eyes of this child, of this half animal, half man, and it's a curiously bifurcated image, because at first you are dealing with the mother's perspective. In the summer sun of the hillside, with my eyes far more than human, I saw for a blazing moment the great grassy world from both sides. There is a priority on the animal world, on the female animal world, that is, I would say, somewhat of a counter narrative to the idea that the human and the male world is perhaps privileged. The perspective is haunting, and the voice is creepy. It stays with you. But the perspective of, or the experience of that perspective, is hard to shake. It stays with you and makes you look at nature a whole other way. Nature that is not perhaps intended exclusively for raping by, teenage boys or male culture broadly. Nature that is somehow more in tune, more beautiful than the male human world, where the boys grow up and get wives and look after their own kind. And you get a sense of, well, that's the bastard child. The sheep child is the bastard child that has been abandoned and left for dead. And you can't help but feel pity and empathy for that creature. And that feeling of sympathy, of empathy, of pity, of recognition is, I think, the whole point of the poem. To get you outside yourself, to get you outside your preconceived notions of what a civilized world is. Perhaps the civilized world, with the bestial lusts that engender these hybrid creatures, these monsters, perhaps the human world is the real monster. It's disturbing.